Good evening, Chris and Scott. This is Thursday night. It's the Littleton Zoning Board of Appeals, 7:15 PM. We're in room 103 at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Massachusetts. We have two cases on the agenda tonight for anybody who's here on the second and later case, which is the petition of ENI. They have asked for an extension, so I just wanted to alert you if you didn't want to sit through the entire meeting. First, we'll start with administrative matters. Any minutes or correspondence? We signed bills.
Yep, the bills.
I don't think we have any minutes pending. And we sometimes take a couple of minutes to talk about what other boards you might be on and what might be going on in town that we should know about. Anybody on a board that wants to report? How about your track team?
Track team's doing good.
And?
2-0. We have another meet on Monday.
Yeah, great. Anything else happening in town that's exciting, newsworthy? Our Littleton robotics team
Oh,
made it to the
Nationals? So they're out in Detroit?
Nationals in Detroit. The kids came before us at a Littleton Business Association meeting, and I have to say, they are the most self-aware and articulate group of people, young adults, that I've seen in a long time. They're getting a great deal out of this program, and if anybody has any spare change, loose change or money, they need some funding to get to the Nationals. Unfortunately, they're in Detroit, but it gets to be a wonderful trip for the kids.
And several of the members are also members of the track team, so.
Oh, so, great.
They can run. They can outrun the robots.
All right.
The second year going to the Nationals.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're only in their second year. It's really impressive. And they are very grateful. I guess they got some donated space from the new old Very Fine, whatever they are today.
Pepsi,
Pepsi, yeah.
some division of Pepsi.
Patriot
Patriot
Beverage.
Parlor.
Patriot
Patriot
Beverage.
Beverage, but it's owned by Pepsi.
So they're off and running, and we're proud of them. And still have a couple more minutes. Does anybody want any other announcements or things to talk
Just
about?
a plug for the Littleton Country Gardeners. We're having our Mother's Day, or our annual plant sale on Mother's Day weekend, same day as election, Saturday, so
Oh, great.
buy your plants.
And that's down in the common like it always is?
Correct. And then we're going to have a table this year over at the middle school for people going to the election, going to vote.
Excellent.
Sherry?
Yes.
Do you know when the other hearing is continued to? These folks were just waiting to hear that.
We need to open it to do that formally, but they've asked us to put it on for May 17th, which is our next hearing date, and we have no reason to do otherwise. So I think it'll be May 17th. And we'll put it on first. Can we put it on first? So it'll be at 7:20. Okay? You're welcome. Unfortunately, we can't talk about it tonight at all, so, yeah.
Okay.
So you have to wait till they open it next month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would
Little-
you like a quick update on the accessory apartment bylaw?
Oh, yes, I would.
So after the last meeting, Roland and I went over the issues that we continue to have with this bylaw, and another application, it would just be for a building permit, it would not require a special permit, came in, but we ran into the same problem with that 15% rule. And so we asked Ed Mullen, the chair of the planning board, to come in and meet with us so we could go over what we felt were, problems with the bylaw. So we met with Ed yesterday and we discussed mostly that 15% rule and what they were considering to be gross floor area, because that was a question that came up at that last hearing. So we all agreed on how we would use the gross floor area number, and we agreed on first floor, second floor, basement, garage, post-construction. So for these people that are building an addition, we're going to use the total square footage of the house and calculate the 15% based on that. And that still controlled the size of it, so they weren't going to be allowed to do, really big additions, which was not the intent of the bylaw. but it would allow, for example, in this case, it was an instance of a garage addition that was going to be attached to the house with an accessory apartment above, and it was an about 800 square foot apartment, and using that post-construction number would allow the owners to do that, and we felt that was the intent of the bylaw. So we all agreed that that was how we would calculate the gross floor area. The only time we'd use the attic space if it was considered to be habitable space, of building code, ceiling height that would allow for finished space. Like some houses have that proper ceiling height, but a lot don't. So we would only use it in cases that was already finished space. The other issue we had was with the wording of the prior approved apartments, and that was still a little vague on how we were going to handle that. They wanted us to allow anything that was previously approved, whether they had kept up with their special permit or not, to be allowed.
Grandfathered, yeah.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is send out a letter and with a list of the requirements under the building code that would be required for it to be considered to be a legal accessory apartment, meaning the fire separation, the two means of egress, and if they comply with that, then, we'll consider that to be a legal accessory apartment, so that we can start keeping a master list, because a lot of these housing studies that we have to submit information to the state, they want the breakouts of the different housing types. And so my question was, how are we going to count these accessory apartments if there's no oversight anymore? Because the old bylaw had us renewing it every 3 years, and this new bylaw took that out. So we talked about that, and we thought we came up with a good solution to that. And then there were just some wording issues and things like that. So we're going to draft up what we're proposing as the changes, and we'll bring them to the next meeting for the board to review. And then you can make that recommendation to the planning board to make those changes or amend those changes as you see fit to go on to the fall town meeting.
And the only other request that I have or had was, if there's a communicating door, they do not need to bring the accessory to the full compliance of a second unit with second egress and firewalls. That's on the pre-existing, on the grandfathered ones. That's what Roland and I talked about.
Yeah, so
Bring
we
that
probably
back
should
to
have
this.
more discussion about that, because the problem with that is how do we monitor? That's, with Roland, that's fine if it's a family member that's there, but now that they're allowing it to be a non-relative in there, that's when you get into where they're going to be two separate units, so we should discuss that.
Exactly.
I'll see if Roland can come to the next meeting, and we can have more discussion about that.
It does become an issue because that door is locked then, and for fire.
And in our view, that's where it should be required to have the fire separation, when that door is locked. If it's a family member that's in there, it's
The
a
door is more likely to
single-family
be
unit.
open.
But when it's a non-relative and you're renting it out for income, that door is locked, and to us, that's two separate units, and it should require the fire separation.
I think I have no problem with that, but I think that on the grandfathered language, that if I'm selling a property that has an in-law apartment to the next buyer who has an in-law, there ought to be a grandfather.
Yeah, and that's where you could probably clean some of that language up in clarifying
Yeah.
that, because there's that distinction now of where it's truly an in-law and now where it's an accessory apartment. So maybe we can add some wording to that to just clean that up, and, so we can kind of monitor these things and keep track of them. But there are a lot of people, like this family that came in just the other day, it was truly for an in-law apartment, was for the mother-in-law, and, but when we got to that 15%, I was like, you can't do it. And so when we did the calculations and added everything in and did it post-construction, they just made it, But again, it's no intention of it being rented out, it's for a family member, and so there's kind of that fine line of, do we make them go to that extra expense of the fire separation and the second means of egress and that, when it's a family member? So-
I think it should certainly be explained to them that it would be a problem with them renting it in the future or selling it as an accessory dwelling without the firewall.
Right.
And most people, I would think, would choose to go to that attic expense for an addition.
Right. Especially when you're constructing it, because it's
Yeah.
not a lot of added expense when you're
And it adds
constructing
value
it.
already having it built in, even if you're not using it that way.
Right.
So the next meeting, we'll bring those changes. I just didn't have a chance to do it for tonight. And we'll bring what we drafted up through the building department as the policy we're following as these come in, and you can review that, and we'll make recommendations to the board for the fall town meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's past 7:20, so now we will call the 7:20 PM case, number 894A, the petitioner Anthony and Melissa Harulis request for a special permit pursuant to 173-10B1 and/or a variance pursuant to section 173-10B2 for a proposed addition and new attached garage at 11 Loxley Road in Littleton. I just need to make an announcement that I have in the past had dealings with Mr. Hurlis, but I have absolutely no interest in this case or any financial interest in the outcome of the matter. So if anyone wishes me to stand down, speak now.
Is he your client?
No, he's not. I have done work with him in the past, but not, it's 9 years ago.
It's just one, it's the more detailed one that you've got in the email. That's like the floor plan and everything.
It has changed slightly since the one I emailed out last week.
No, it's 25.5, or, no, it's 25.
Okay, the way we do this is that Mr. Hurlis or his representative, Mr. Ringwald, will present first, identify yourself for the record. We have some plans, I think they're going to make some, call out some modest changes to the plans. After the applicant speaks, the board members can ask questions and comments. After the board members, will open it up to the floor for support or opposition, and then back to the applicant to rebut, and back to the board.
Oh, Sherry, you
Yeah.
will be the fifth voting.
Oh, thank you, yeah. I think, Mark, only because he hasn't been here in so many meetings, he hasn't had a turn for a
Yeah,
while, so
remember how.
Mark says he
He gets to write it too, right?
he gets
Oh,
to
yeah.
write it.
There you go, that's good. Guess you just got a no vote.
Sorry, Tony.
Next meeting, so does it make a difference if this gets continued, that somebody else should stop?
No, this
Okay.
will be one meeting. Thank you, though, for
Thank you.
telling us that.
Good evening, Bruce Ringwald from GPR, Goldsmith Preston Ringwald, representing Tony and his wife, Rawls. As you're aware, they live at 11 Loxley Road. The lot itself is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, being of 16,850 square feet in round numbers, less than the 40,000 square foot requirement. The existing house and the existing detached garage are were both built back in the, I was going to say, mid-50s, 1950s. They're closer to the road than the current zoning, as can be seen on the attached sketch that you folks have, both the first one, and I just handed out a set of plans that have a minor modification, which I'll explain as we go through the application here. As the way that the Littleton Board of Appeals likes it, we requested a special permit, but also a variance, should your interpretation feel that a variance is necessary. The existing structure is a 3-bedroom ranch with a detached garage, and they're looking to a total of 6 living rooms, 6 rooms of living space per Title V requirements, and they're looking to expand this structure to maintain that 6-room count by expanding an existing living space off of the right side or the easternmost portion of the house, and removing the detached garage and adding an attached garage, moving a bedroom upstairs, taking out a bedroom and allowing for a hallway to connect from the house to the garage, and a hallway and a mudroom in there. Tony's father has moved in with him, and these renovations are to allow it so that he can move about the house easier. They can get him in and out of a vehicle in inclement weather without having to go outside into the elements, and to, again, provide better living space. It's anticipated that in the future, he will need some live-in assistance, and so by moving Tony and Melissa's bedroom upstairs above the garage, that'll open up space next to their father's room, his father's room, so that they can have that close proximity. Having said all that, the site itself creates several issues for us. The site is 1.5 times as wide as it is deep. It is a corner lot, so we have a 30-foot setback to both Jennifer Street and Loxley Road. Just prior to Tony buying the property, there was a septic upgrade done on the property, and this property has a slower perk with a higher groundwater. And to meet the requirements of Title V, that being a 20-foot offset from the existing building, the septic system had to sit back and be a long, lean addition. So if you look in the back of the site plan here, it says record location of the leach area. That long, thin rectangular shape is the upgraded septic system that was put on the property. In front of that, you see two dash squares with little round circles in them. Represents the septic tank and the pump chamber. We've been to the Board of Health, and we've obtained a Title V variance from the Board of Health to allow for the garage to be within 10 feet of the septic tanks. Title V says that your septic components are to be 10 feet away, tanks to be 10 feet away from a foundation, and in a leaching area, 20 feet away from a basement. The leaching area is far enough away. There's no basement proposed under the garage, but the septic tanks are too close. You see a dashed oval around the septic tanks that I just discussed. That's the 5-foot offset. So we're 5-6 feet away from the septic tanks with that. And Title V, or the Board of Health, has granted us that relief at that point. This is critical from the standpoint that it keeps the garage from being pushed back further onto the property and forces that garage to come forward and sit forward. In the first iteration of plans that you had, that we submitted, the closest corner to the road of the proposed garage was 25.5 feet, the same setback as the existing garage. But in the Heralds' workings with their designer, that setback to get into the house created a lot of additional framing, additional roof lines, and so they squared off the garage rectangular piece, as you see on the plans that I just handed out this evening, where the garage would join into that, and I'm seeing a puzzled look on Cheryl's face, so I'm going to step
How
forward
deep
and
is the
show
new
it.
garage?
30
30
feet.
feet.
It's 30 feet.
30 feet, and a
Because you have
standard,
stairs that go up across the back. So this
is
corner right
30
here
feet.
is the corner I'm talking about?
yeah, I understand that, and you're coming a little closer to
Yeah,
the,
this
so you're
corner here-
increasing the
Yeah, we're from here to here,
non-conformity.
that makes us about a half a foot.
But this is 30 feet,
That's 30 feet in depth. Because you have stairs
and a
that come
standard
up
garage is usually 24?
24 by 24, yeah.
Okay.
So we have stairs that come up across the back of the garage, and that's why you have your increased depth. So puts
I'm not
that,
sure that justifies 6 feet.
Let's let him
Let's go
finish the
ahead.
presentation, please.
so that sets you up from the closest point of the garage. To the right side of the east side of the house, there's an existing living space that's going to be removed, and I think it's about an 18 by 23 now, addition that goes on that side. And in the original one, again, there was a little notch in there that created additional roof lines and different boxes. So this piece sits proud of the existing facade by 1 foot. to have some different roof lines, but not as many as were initially proposed with the first round. We did take a look at the abutting properties as per your bylaw when you have other non-conforming structures that sit closer to the road. And the average setback from the property to the east and to the west, the closest corners you can see is 28.1 and 24.9. Memory serves me right, that average was like 26.4 in that range, or 26 and change. So the closest thing was on this is the existing garage at 25.5. And that close end of the house right now, the closest part of the house right now is at 28.2, and we'd be going to 26.4, a foot behind the existing garage, but on the opposite end of the house. So from the standpoint that if you folks feel that this become variances versus a special permit, I want to point out again the soils on the property and have a high groundwater. The septic system has been done and upgraded prior to this, and it has kept the additions from the ability of sliding backwards on the lot. The same with the septic tanks. We can't slide the septic tanks any further back on the property because Title V requires a limit of 3 feet of fill over the top, and they're right at that limit right now to allow gravity from the house to the septic tank, and then it is then pumped up to the leaching system. The shape of the lot with this being a non-conforming small lot reduces the setbacks and the ability in here, and we believe that the possible relief here is still within the guidelines, would not be detrimental to the neighborhood or to the intent and purpose of the bylaw. And we've attached with this the copies of the deed, copies of the abutters list, authorization for me to speak on Anthony's behalf, Tony's behalf, and with that, I turn it over to the board for any questions.
Go ahead.
How many square feet is, first off, what a wonderful presentation, very thorough. You've already answered 99% of my questions.
All right.
But how many square feet is the house presently?
I'm going to have to cheat and look because I'm not sure I have that right off my hands, but you know off the top of your head?
I believe it's around 1,200.
1,200. And when you're done with the addition, how many square feet will it be?
I don't know, I have to look. I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's all right.
Let's see, we could, 18 by 23 on one side. Don't bring my phone in, so 18 by 23.
with that.
Okay, 18 by 23, once you get into your code.
Calculator. Copy.
18 by 23?
414.
Okay, but that's replacing, let's go with 9 by 12.
Your garage is how many, 30 by, you said?
30 by 34.
30 by 34,
But you don't count the garage as living space. The garage is not
but
added.
above it is.
But of it, so I'm going to get to that when I get to that next page.
108 for the
So
9 by 12.
we have 108 minus 114, 414 minus 108, so that's 306 additional square feet on the living space on that side, and the space above the garage. Exterior wall to exterior wall. Now, these exterior walls to do this dimension for up above, keep in mind that you have the hip roof,
Yeah, I
so you don't have the full area.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's going to be 26 by 34, please.
30 by 34?
Oh, 26 by 34. I'm going
I
by...
thought your
This
thing,
is
You're
34.
up on the upstairs, Cheryl, so I've got, this portion is gone because of the eave back in, and so I'm doing this piece right here, 26.
oh, I see, you're not counting the eaves.
Right.
Okay,
All right?
so you're doing 26?
Well, the eaves, I am counting the eaves back here, but in the front, they're not being counted. So I'm doing 26 by 34. This one by this one.
Oh, but it's actually to here, let's face it.
Okay, so let's do the 38 on that, taking your stairway out. Okay.
Because that's living space too. I don't, if you want to block that off and pretend
Okay.
that's not there, I'm okay with
So
that.
26 by 34.
By 38.
38. Pardon me.
26 by 38 is what?
Yep.
988.
What?
Not 988.
She's
So-
down on the 1,300 more square feet.
So, yeah.
So you're more than doubling the house. So you're ending up with about 2,500 square feet, somewhere in there?
Somewhere in there.
2,600 square feet? Okay. Those are my questions.
Anyone else? Board? Okay, we have a comment from the Building Commissioner Zoning Office. Will someone read it into the record for me? What's up for reading? You were covering, so I had to pick on you.
Yeah. Okay, the applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to 17310B1 that regulates the extension or alteration of existing non-conforming structure. The primary structure, house, is non-conforming as it sets back from the front property line less than the required 30 feet. The applicant also wishes to remove the existing non-conforming detached structure that is not regulated by the bylaw and not part of the special permit request. The applicant wishes to construct an added garage, attached garage with habitable space above to the left of the primary dwelling, replacing the one detached garage. This proposed addition increases the existing non-conforming dwelling as it is proposed to be less than the required setback from the front property line. The applicant further wishes to construct a one-story habitable room on the right of the dwelling. This proposed addition increases the existing non-conforming dwelling as it is proposed to be less than the required setback from the front property line. This office has reviewed the abutting lots pursuant to 17331 intensity review schedule note 9 and determined this exemption did not apply. I'm not sure what that one was.
Oh, that's the one where if the abutting lots on either side sit forward of the 30-foot mark, then you can use the average of what the abutting lots are. But Mr. Ringwell already
Okay.
pointed out to us that that was already looked at.
Okay,
And the
so
only,
he just basically reiterated what the petition is. He
Yeah.
didn't give a comment one way or the other.
yeah, and so in point of order, I just want to remind the board and the applicant, this will be treated as a variance because under the case law, even though it appears that you are not, that you have a special permit allowance for change, extension, or alteration of a pre-existing nonconformity, the case law says that if you're adding any new dimensional variances whatsoever, you have to treat it as a variance and establish the hardship rule. So that's what we'll be treating it as tonight. And the only other thing I didn't check, and I didn't hear you raise it, Bruce, was if you have more than one street abutting the lot, the additional street setback may be reduced 1 foot for every 2,000 square feet under 40,000, but to not less than 15 feet. So you have 30 feet on the Jennifer Street side, and we're under 40,000 square feet by
A lot.
By 23,000.
23,000, so 1 foot for every 2 is 10 feet reduction.
10-foot reduction.
Yeah, so you
So I
really,
don't need a waiver from, I don't need a setback from the front then.
you really could argue that you don't need, now, I think Roland
Roland doesn't,
Go by
isn't
the
gonna like
street
that.
address.
goes by the street address and says that it's the side setback, but because that exists, and because the town saw fit to make that exist, I have less concern when you're looking for this kind of a variance when you have a corner lot like you do.
But it was our determination that it was a special permit because there's really no new nonconformity. There's already an existing reduced frontage.
This board has always taken the fact that when you raise a wall up, it
You're
increases the,
increasing an existing nonconformity, you're not creating a new one.
we've always taken the
There's
view
more
that-
of it, that's why.
that there's more of it,
You're
therefore
allowed
it
to
does.
increase an existing nonconformity, is our opinion.
And I understand the case law that you mentioned, but I agree with Cheryl and Roland from that standpoint. With other boards that I've been before, the issue has always been that if I had a 25-foot setback and I went to 24, then I was in for a variance. But if I had a 25-foot setback and I was staying at that same distance or behind that, even if it was getting wider, then that fell under their special permit categories. Again,
But
I'm
again-
He's
I'm
also
in-
losing 6 inches.
But
yeah,
you're
I
losing
am
6
losing.
inches,
Well, yes,
and-
now I am, yes.
And,
Yeah.
didn't mean anything by that.
No, no, no.
And on the other side of the house, you have, now I feel like Peter Scott.
You're sounding a lot like him, too.
You sound like him,
You
too.
hanging
so-
out there too much?
On the other side of the house, in my estimation, you're creating a new nonconformity.
That's fine.
It's not the existing nonconformity, because you're literally taking down an addition and adding an addition.
And
But
we,
you satisfy the, as
And
far
you're
as
going
I'm
from
concerned.
28 to 26 there.
yeah. And we understand that, and I understand that that's the way that this board has interpreted in the past. It's been before you guys a bunch of times. And hence, we put together the application to address both concerns of variance and a special permit.
Oh, I see that there are abutters in the crowd here.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Carr,
So I'm here to support Tony. He has his elderly father living with him, a World War II vet. The downstairs, the configuration is to allow him easy access, the entire first floor. It just makes sense. I would hope that the board takes that into consideration and that it gets approved tonight.
Mr. Carr, where are you located?
Elizabeth Street,
So, here.
yes.
anybody else? We ready to close the,
I do have a question.
go ahead.
The depth of the
No, we have to
proposed
discuss
garage
it.
is 30
Oh,
feet.
we haven't discussed it?
And what's the depth of the present garage?
Don't have it on here. Based on the 30 and that, I'm gonna guess about 25.
Okay. So my question is, since that garage seems to be functional, can you reduce the depth of that 30 feet by a couple feet to pull
So-
that corner in?
The issue here is you have stairs that go, if you look on, I'm gonna say the first sheet, but also on the next, the third sheet in, on the architecturals, this
How
one
many
here.
stairs up, is it the length? Is, in other words,
Here, you go like,
Oh, no, that's
if you look at
going
it
down.
from this standpoint, yeah, on this plan.
Can the hood go under it, you mean?
So you have it so that your stairs go on up. And I just overheard you with the car go under it. Well, yes and no, because your stairs usually have have structure that goes to the ground to hold the stairs up, and they don't typically hang from the ceiling above. So in this particular case, we have a minimum of 4 feet that you're taking out of that, so that brings you to 26. Now you take a look at the last architectural sheet, and you have the hip roof on the end of the garage, so you're losing that head space out of that, and they're trying to keep the space down in. So hence, when you look at the second floor plan for above the garage, you're losing space because of the eaves and brings it in. So it is a walk-in, it has a master bedroom with some space, has more width, but the front to rear is the issue that is really not that extravagant.
I'd also like to speak to it. Has anybody been to the site? Did you go around the site?
Yes.
It really is innocuous. You won't see the depth. And the site is crowded, so to me, I would rather have the deeper garage so he can store lawn equipment and other things in it, because once this addition is made and he's got room for himself and his in-laws, he's going to need a little storage capacity in that garage.
I would make a motion to
Can I have a
close the
question
hearing.
first?
Okay.
The right-hand side addition, is there any reason why it can't be slid backwards? Couple feet?
I gotta get back to that one, because I
And maybe
seem to
some-
recall something on that piece. Go ahead, you speak, Tony.
No, it's just, I realize from an architectural point of view, it's kind of nice having something bump out a little
With the
bit.
septic system.
Hmm?
You would have the same problem with the septic system. It goes all the way past
or
the
just make it
back.
small?
But,
Can you make it a little
but,
smaller?
but the houses are, we could just go back to, it's flush with the back of the existing house.
Right, and that was what we were
That will
trying,
give you about 2 feet, which will then make that side not any closer to the street.
Yep, there's a chimney there also,
I see
and,
that.
and.
So you lose it.
And there's a HVAC unit also there, and so I think there was concerns about having that stuff too close and all tightly in there. There's my father likes the fireplace, so we need to put a new one in that room. So I think there was concerns about it, direct venting there as well, so I think that was part of the reason it was brought forward.
Cheryl moved to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Well,
Alan?
before we do, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Because you just opened a can of worms as far as I'm concerned.
That.
So you're saying that the heating system is where? Is in the front or the back?
There's an HV system in the back.
In the back. So you're trying to keep this step in to accommodate,
Well, it's doing several things, Cheryl. Initially, the addition was 20 by 22. The problem is that it was encroaching on the side yard setback at that point. So we modified the structure in to make it 18 by 24. That was big, it was pushing it out. So we brought it into 18 by 23. We tried, the architect and the homeowner tried not to have the front or the rear facades align because the depths aren't the same, the roof line would be different, and the front facade wouldn't be different. So you want to try to have some steps in the facade to give some character to the building and to the roof line. So it's a 1 foot step forward. It's still almost 2 feet, foot and a half behind the house to the left at its closest point to this closest point, and it's a foot and a half further forward of where the house was on that end, but a foot back from where the garage was on the site, so.
So I'm going to take your question as undoing your motion to close the
I
hearing.
would like to
and see
make a
if we have
motion to close
it.
the
Question
hearing.
too.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, what's driving the need for a 3-stall garage? The reason being is, most houses have 2, and a lot on these streets don't have any. One of the things I look at, and I'm sure the board looks at, is what you're proposing in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. So if you're the only 3-car garage, it's really not in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. So that's kind of a little bit of a strike against it, but I'm just wondering, why do you need a 3-stall garage?
I can answer that. So the concern is that the way the architect designed the room itself above, I was worried about poles and other things. And I felt like with two garages, because they're not very wide, I was afraid that when we have the 2 cars in there and my sister or someone else comes to get him, it's weather out, we'll have a hard time opening the doors. As it is, I have to put a little ramp to get him in and out of the car, and I just felt like having the extra space inside would be better. And then like I think you had suggested, just the extra storage in the back. So we have 3 cars, and I was hoping to store my motorcycle inside as well. That's the only reason.
Well, plus it gives you the added surface area in the apartment above, or the room
Yeah.
above, so.
Now, can I have a
As well.
motion?
Well, the problem with motions is, with closing the hearing, is then we either have to say yay or nay, and we can't ask them to modify things. So if people are thinking modifications, they should pursue them now before we close the hearing. Is anyone thinking modifications that they want to try to negotiate?
We're not voting members tonight, so I don't know if we have the,
Oh, you can still speak. We always
Okay.
let our alternate speak.
I do think that
I'm
we
sorry,
can
I'm talking
probably
for
pull
you.
it in a little bit to make it not as off the setbacks and maybe make it a little bit smaller so that it works within it. My other concern would be just to make sure that when we're looking at the mudroom, to ensure that there's no way that there can be a door on there,
Why are you concerned about a door in the mudroom?
because it makes it a 7th room.
Oh, that's a Board of Health issue, that's not our
Okay.
issue.
It still would be permissible, you're allowed 6-room count.
My 2 cents on this is that you're talking about a de minimis change or a jog after a lot of money's been spent on architects. The lot is tight. The request is modest compared to what we allow down in these small lot areas. I don't think we should be micromanaging the way this man is going to live in a family situation with an invalid parent. And I just put a ramp in my garage for getting my mother in and out of 2 steps, Mark, and just on that 2-step height, that ramp took the entire bay. So, based on, the regs. So I don't think we should be micromanaging this. I think it's a blessing that he's able to take his father in and we have a solution to a problem.
And the garage is only at 34 feet wide. The typical 3-bay garage is a minimum of 12 per bay.
You're done.
I'm done.
Yeah, we're not asking you questions
Can we
now.
close the
You
hearing
did an
now?
excellent job. It's always a pleasure to have you here because you answer our questions before we even ask them.
Okay. Motion again?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Can I put Cheryl moved to close twice and Alan seconded
There was
twice?
sorry.
Yeah, maybe 4.
Well, I rescinded my first one, too.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Deliberation, or have we done it?
It's a very big addition. But on the other hand, given the area, its location, I don't know. I'm having heartburn these days about mansionizing and McMansions going on little lots, and I think we've let it get carried away, and that's my personal opinion. But on the other, this doesn't seem that unreasonable or that out of keeping. I would have preferred a two-car garage with maybe a higher roof line that allowed for living area of all of the roof line. But I understand the ramp, and I understand the wanting to be a 2,600 square foot house. And if you're going to put this kind of money into it, you want to be able to get your money back out of it, because let's face it, our houses are major investments. My 2 cents.
Anyone else?
Well, a couple of years ago, I'm trying to remember the name of the street. It's one parallel to Edsel. It's on the corner. And I remember that one, the guy wanted to put up a really big garage. And I want to say, I probably said something about it then, but it went through. And every time I drive by, I say, boy, that's a big garage.
One above.
Now, whether my feeling matters, I mean, it's an aesthetic thing, but
The garage is
it's a little
could be as big
bit
as the
along
house.
with
That one
Cheryl.
was
It's like
5
there's
feet from
this
the lot
creep, Yeah, but it's still big. It's bigger
very
than the
big. It
house.
was-
It's taller than the house, that's what gets me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I drive by
Very
it every
close to
day.
the
and,
lot
yeah.
line in
And it's like,
comparison to this.
whether that's
We might have
cause to
preferred
vote
he
against
raised
it,
the roof of his main house, but,
Well, I
you
think
know,
the
that's
difference
not
on that
our.
one was it
Or
was
change the pitch on
like
the
6
garage
feet
roof.
from the lot line. This one,
Yeah, this one's a bit further, yeah, and it's a wide open lot.
But they did make an effort. If you look at the drawing, they did make an effort to keep the roof line down and keep it from being to whatever. So,
Yeah, I think a 3-car garage is gonna look a little strange there, but I don't think that's our decision, and I have no issue with the setbacks.
Good.
Are you
Now,
gonna
other
have
than the surrounding people, other than getting a notice of this, they don't see drawings or anything unless they actually come to a meeting.
They're entitled to come to a hearing, they're
online.
entitled to come, it's all online, it's a public record. And
we have established a hardship for the variance with the
Yeah,
septic
there's no
system
question, there's
and
no-
the depth of the lot. So,
motion?
So what are you gonna do with the nice brick driveway you put in?
Works so hard on.
It's good talking to you.
You can pick the bricks up and reuse them.
That's what's,
Well, now I might have a conflict if the bricks are lying there and they're up for grabs.
I used to reuse them, buy some
no,
more.
you can use them
we
for the
will
walkway.
be sustaining additional hardship to move the driveway aside while this, if you approve this, for the work to continue. And then when it's done, I'm gonna put them back.
Yeah, it's just
All the way across.
unfortunately you have to move them.
I'm sorry?
It'll be look nice all the way across.
It'll be exactly the same size it is now.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's just unfortunately, the grading that we needed for the other meeting, other.
If you left them there during the construction, machines would destroy them.
That as well.
They'd be crushed.
He's been there.
I'd like to make a
Spoken from
motion.
experience, go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the
Grant.
grant the variance. Where's the permit? Does anyone have a copy of the permit?
Why don't you use this plan and this plan? That one and this one, okay? That's the best one.
Okay, that we grant the variance as requested and shown in plan dated, Plan 171092,
Dated April 18th.
dated April 18th, 2018, with the setback to be no greater.
I don't think you have to call it
I don't
out.
have
You
to call
no,
it
I'm
out?
gonna make it.
The plan shows it all.
A plan shows it all?
Yep.
Okay, is that good enough?
173,
Yeah,
10B2.
and the decision will read that the hardship was found, so.
What are you coaching me with?
I said the decision will read that we found the hardship based on the septic system
Right.
location.
I
Okay.
was just giving you the section of the bylaw.
Can I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
There is a what?
Is there a delay where they have, butters can come complain?
20-day appeal period.
There's a 20-day appeal period. It very rarely happens. They can go ahead and start, but they may have to undo what they did if it is appealed and the appeal is upheld.
Can't start.
And start on variances. You
Can't start on
special
variances?
permits.
Oh, I'm corrected. I'm wrong.
The garage shows no columns. There's no columns in the garage?
Sorry?
There's no columns in that garage?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm
Nice
sorry,
place.
I'm sorry to cut you,
How big is your beam?
I'm sorry to cut you short, but we have a hearing that I have to open.
Thank you for your time.
We had a hearing scheduled for, thank you for coming.
So long. Farewell to Nick.
Tell Dave DeBay I said hello.
Can I have your front page again, please, there, Ellen? Oh, I got it right here. 7:30 PM, we're a little late, case number 893A, the petitioner ENI 25 King Street LLC requests for a special permit and/or variance pursuant to 17326A, commercial uses, restaurant, footnote 4, for a proposed drive-through window as an accessory use to the existing convenience store Dunkin' Donuts at 25 King Street. On April 18, 2018, the board received a letter from the law firm representing the applicant stating, "I represent Kenneth Black in the above-referenced variance application for 25 King Street, period. In light of the comments we have received from the Town Zoning Enforcement Officer, the Board of Health, Conservation, Fire, and Planning Board, we would like to request rescheduling the hearing for the variance application to the next town meeting," but he meant ZBA meeting in May, "to allow us time to adequately respond to the town's concerns. Additionally, he's traveling out of the country April 16th and will be unable to attend April 19th. If acceptable, kindly reschedule the hearing for the above-referenced application for May 17th, 2018, or at the time and date of the next available meeting. Please advise if we should prepare and serve notice to the board members and abutters." Now, I just need to know when this one came in to make sure that we're still within our dates for hearing and decision, and we don't need an extension. And then I will ask the board for a vote to approve his request for extension. Normally, we ask the applicant to come in for an extension.
Because that way we get in writing and they can't be accused of not hearing.
That's right.
March 15th.
You know what, I think we better have him, I think he better, we could vote to allow him to extend
Contingent.
extend to May 17th at a time certain, which I'd like to make 7:20, because that's what I told the abutters who were here, contingent upon his delivery to us of a letter consenting to the extension of timelines for opening the hearing and timelines for writing the decision by the same 30-day period, okay?
And if he doesn't, then it's denied? What is it?
He's not granted the extension.
Okay.
So, can I
Are we-
have,
Can I make a motion to close the
wait,
hearing?
I need a vote on that
Oh.
request for extension.
I make a motion that
And-
we, go ahead, someone else go.
And Jillian, why don't you vote it, be the fifth voting member for that. So, motion to extend that hearing to May 17th on
Contingent.
condition we get an extension. Second, someone make that motion, please.
So moved.
And then second,
Sure.
and then all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. And then you can make a motion to
I make a
adjourn.
motion to close the hearing. To adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? I need a second on it, sorry.
Someone second my motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
All those in favor? Closed. Good night.
Seconded, wood-burn wall on the side of the house with
Can I borrow your for a few seconds?
stuff.